Hi guys, this is Carissa from the Dragon's Gem. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this butterfly sun catcher. This is going to be able to either hang with the wings open, or you can have it so that the butterfly hangs like it's in flight with the wings partially closed. They are mobile so that you can pose it as you want. The original design that I had for this, you've probably seen around on my Instagram or Facebook, is going to be this sun catcher, which is not mobile. You can't move it. Both feature copper wire and labradorite. If you want to be able to win one of these sun catchers, please leave a comment down below, like, and subscribe. I'm going to accept entries from the 10th of April through the 10th of May. This is going to run concurrent to a contest that I'm having to win wind chimes that I've made. These are copper wind chimes, and it has a butterfly topper, so you'll have a big butterfly up at the top and it'll be suspended with copper wind chimes below. I estimate those to be about a $200 value, but please check my YouTube channel specifically for a video about how to win those wind chimes. Today we're going to be working with two different gauges of wire. We're going to be using 26 gauge as well as your choice of 18 to 14 gauge. In the tutorial, I'm working with 14 gauge. You're only going to need minimal tools. You're going to need wire cutters, flush cutters, and some pliers. You can use nylon jaw if you'd like to flatten and compress your weave as you go, but I found it pretty easy to do with my hands or with the pliers themselves. I did use nylon jaw a little bit just to flatten the weave in places. We're going to be working with 5mm brelettes. You're going to need at least 6, and 5mm labradorite beads that we've got going down the center. I think I've got 7 here, and then one 10mm bead at the top. And then I've just attached chain with 2 jump rings. The template for making this butterfly is available on my website. Go to thedragonsgem.com and download the free template and use that to follow along for this tutorial. The template will let you know exactly how to make your shapes for your wings. And we're working with wire that I've measured in millimeters just because that was the best way to get the most exact length. I'd be happy to see what you make from this tutorial. Please feel free to comment down below if you have any questions, and you can contact me on my website and show me anything that you've made from any of my tutorials. I'd be super happy to see them. Okay, the first thing you need for this tutorial is going to be this template that I've drawn. This template is available on my website, thedragonsgem.com. Just go to the tutorial section and go to the downloads section. It's a drop-down menu on the website. When you print out this template, this is your guide square. This square should print out approximately 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters. This information right here isn't on it, but everything else will be there. For this project, we're going to be using 2 lengths of 8 centimeter, which is approximately 80 millimeters, and then 2 lengths of 20.02 centimeters, which is approximately 202 millimeters, and 2 lengths of 21.01 centimeters, which is approximately 211 millimeters. So these are all of the lengths of wire that we're using, plus some 26 gauge weaving wire. The wire that I'm working with today is 14 gauge. I think it gives a little bit more stability, but it will be harder to work with. If you find yourself having a hard time shaping it to the template, it's okay to go down as low as 18 gauge. I believe 18 gauge is what I used for the very first one, and it was kind of flimsy, but this is just hanging in the window. It is a sun catcher, so you don't need it to be super sturdy, but I do like my things to be a little bit sturdier. So the first thing we're going to do, you don't really need to straighten your wires for these. If there's a little bit of curve to it, that's great, because we're going to be making curves, and that actually makes it a little bit easier to make your curve. So I'm going to start with my longer wire, the 211 millimeter wire, and that's going to be the outside curve of the butterfly wing. And we're going to be making this in 2 separate wings, and then they will be stitched together around the body. These are the longer pieces, 211 millimeters, and that is approximately the length of this piece right here. If you want to cut yours a little bit longer so that you have some room to try to have some error room as far as what you're shaping, that's fine. But I have cut mine exactly to shape, and I'm going to start by shaping this tiny curl right here, and I'm going to go fairly high up on my needle nose pliers, and I want to go in with the curl of this wire, so my wire is bending this way, and I just want to go like I'm continuing that bend. So if you can see, it kind of curves like that. I'm going to take this and just roll that in to make a loop. And this is what our briolette is going to be attached to. So there is my first loop done on the largest setting, which is about right for this. And so now what I'm going to do is pin that down with my finger. I think I'm actually going to start by just kind of like trying to get a gentle curve going up at the beginning right here. And you may find it easier to hold with your flat nose pliers and just kind of use your thumb as a mandrel, and just all I'm doing is stroking the wire and pressing my finger up against it to make that curve. So continue by curving the wire to fit the shape that we've drawn on the paper here. And I'm just getting a nice curl started. And I want to bring this in just a bit tighter. And I'm just kind of letting the wire curl itself gently. Don't fight it, just go with the wire and work little by little. I find that if you pull from the edge, you get a gentler curl, and then you can kind of get that little by little in place. And so now I'm just going little by little, and if I have to straighten some out and backtrack, then I will. And I'm just pinning it in place with my hand, and then just keep trying to make sure that you're always lined up with your template, and go back in a little bit more. And if you keep going a little bit at a time like this, then it will make it easier to get it in a nicer curve so that you don't have a lot of sharp angles. See, when I press down right there and then pull, that's where it wants to anchor. So that's why you'll have to go back sometimes and kind of smooth out those areas. And if you can kind of just gently curve it with your fingers. And see what I'm doing here is I'm pulling from this the far tip. Let me slide this down. So I'm holding close to the end and I'm pinning it right here with my thumb. And I'm trying to get this section right here to come onto this black line. And if I pull just a little bit at a time, then it gets more in place where I need it. And so same with this, just a little bit over and over. So now I've got a bigger section that's lined up where I want it. A little bit at a time. And it doesn't have to be exact because you can adjust it as you're working on your weaving, but the closer to exact you get it, the easier it's going to be. And I'm just constantly trying to make sure that my curves do line up where they're supposed to be, because sometimes it might seem correct, but then it gets moved a little and you don't notice. Uncurling it is always the easier part. And so again, I'm just kind of stroking the metal and I'm pushing out with my thumb against it to try and kind of curl it. I want to straighten this a little bit right here. So I'm doing the reverse and I'm pressing down against that way. Or down towards the inside, I guess. And now I'm up towards the top. I need to get that curve there going in. And this is the point where I'm going to grab my pliers, pushing it in until I get that right where I want it. So there we go. That is the outside wing. And now we're just going to repeat this with the other piece. Let's see. I'm just going to make sure that I've got that loop flush in against there. And we'll start this side by with some heavy petting. And again, just gentle, slow bends. This is a tighter curl, so using the pliers to help get that grip is probably going to be easier on you. See, that is pretty much right where I wanted it. As you can see. So here's where we get in the tricky part, is getting that last straight little section in there. So I'm just petting this edge with my thumb, trying to flatten that curve. Whoop. And that is close to what I wanted, but not quite. So close. At this point, I'm going to hold the wire in place as close as I can and get those last few tweaks in. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, you're just trying to get that general shape. So there is the inside of our wing. So we've got the outside that we did and the inside that we did. And those are going to be wrapped together so that that's going to be the outside of our butterfly wing. Alright, to make the body of the butterfly, we're going to take the two 8-centimeter pieces that we cut earlier, and we are going to just curl the tips into small little loops like we did with this portion of the butterfly, but just closer to the tip so that you can get as small a little loop as possible. Or you can hammer the edge of the wire flat and file it so that it's rounded, and you can have kind of like a paddle shape at the end for your antenna if you like. I'm going to go with the rounded shape though. And we're going to take 48 inches of our 26 gauge weaving wire. Once you found the center of your wire, go ahead and do 10 wraps, compress, and then we're going to go ahead and thread our bead on. Make sure that that wire in the center is straight. So the bit of wire coming out the top right here, that's the part that we want to put the bead onto. I'm going to slide my 10-millimeter bead down. So that it's against the wire like that. Now I'm going to take the other antenna and hold that in place so that it matches the same wrap style as the left side. So on mine, my weaving wire is exiting the bottom. If I were to flip it over, then it would be exiting the top. But mine is exiting the bottom, so when I start weaving on this side, I'm going to lay my antenna on top of it so that it is still exiting the bottom. And I'm going to hold it so that the bottom is narrow together and the top is going to be wider because the bead at the top is wider. The beads at the bottom are going to be more narrow. So when I wrap this on, it's perfectly fine that the bottom pieces flop loose and stuff like that, because we're going to pull them together as we go. So 10 more wraps on this side. 3. Compress. And that is our first step. All right, so now what I'm going to do, my wires are exiting over the top. I want my wires exiting on the same side. So if I were to flip it over, now my wires are coming out on the bottom. So what I want to do is I'm going to reverse the way these are coming out, and I'm going to come over the top for the first one. For the first set of wraps, I'm going to come out and just go directly across like a ladder. And I'm going to hold on to the little antennas to try to give myself something to grasp. This part is a little bit fidgety. So I'm going straight across, and I'm going to make 1, 2 wraps. And then same thing with this one. I'm going to come across, straight across, and I'm going to make 1, 2 wraps. So now when my wires are exiting, they're going to come under the bottom, same as they were on this side. So just to simplify it for you, if you want to change the direction that your wires are going, you just bring them straight across like a ladder stitch, like a ladder rung. So now I'm going to add one of my 5mm beads to the wire, and then I want to bring my other wire and go through from the opposite side so that I have wire coming out of both sides. And I'm going to pull slowly, trying to keep my wires even, because I want this bead to slide down in place with both wires and not get kinked, and that is tricky. And you can just kind of put like a little bit of a curve in there. The longer you leave your finger in, the easier it's going to be to bring those wires through so that they meet nicely. So now if I were to make my wires line up, my antenna wires line up, we've got the head of the butterfly and then the first body for the bead. We're going to do 5 wraps before we add the next bead. 5 wraps on each side. So 5 wraps was just about enough to get me to the bottom of this bead, but I think I'm going to make it 6 wraps on each side, and you'll just experiment, see what works well for the beads that you have, because different beads are going to take more or less wraps to get the spacing ideal, and it's kind of just trial and error. All right, I'm going to turn it over so that the spot with the ladders is on the back, and I think it makes it easier for me to judge how my beads are setting when I thread it on. And you can see now that we've got a few beads in, it's more or less maintaining the distance that we need it. It's just those first 2 or 3 beads that can be a real challenge. Okay, now we have finished adding all of the beads for the body, and I have used 7 of the 5mm beads and 1 of the 10mm beads. And if you choose to use a different size other than the 5mm, just measure as you're building your butterfly body. You want it to come out about right there on the bottom. This is about the shape and anatomy that I like for it. If you want to do something different, by all means, make your changes. I'd love to see pictures of how it works out for you. So the way that we're going to end the body is by making a loop at the bottom. We're going to make two curls, and I'm going to trim this down just a bit. And I'm just going to grab one end and curl it inwards on itself. Holding towards the tip of my, and now it is curled in. If I can get it to focus. And then I'm going to come from the opposite side and take the other piece and bend it in as well. And these are actually a little too narrow for working with this piece. They want to twist and move. So I'm just going to come in with a different pair that are a little bit stronger and cinch that in. So now this is the body that I have, the bottom. It's curved. And if we wanted to, we could always hang like a little crystal dangle there when we're done. And I'm going to go ahead and trim off these wires now. And I just want to bring that towards the back. You can see this is the back of the body. It's got the ladder stitches. Then this is the front where it's just nice and beads. And we're going to go ahead and just press those little bits in so that we don't have any pokey bits. Alright, so now we've got the body. And you can just tweak these antennae now that it's in place. And I'm going to go ahead and do that by pressing it down to make sure that it's all nice and even. I'm happy with that. So there's our little butterfly body. And now we're going to put the wings together. You're going to take nearly 7.5 feet of the 26 gauge wire. Take one of the inner pieces and one of the outer pieces, and make sure that you have oriented the slightly larger circle is down. You don't want the larger circle up at the top. Just make sure that it matches your template. And we are going to start wrapping, starting here. We're going to do 5 wraps on the inner wing design in order to anchor the wire, and then we're going to move into a 2-5 rotation until we reach this point. And then we're going to switch into a figure 8 or corset weave, and we're going to do about 2-3, and then switch to 3-4, and then 3-5, and then reverse down. And the end of it here, we're going to wind up curling into a little just another little curl like that, as small as we can, and it will lay on top of this wing here so that you'll wind up getting something like that. And then this extra accent is going to make it to where you can add another dangle right here if you want to. So starting with my inner piece, I am going to wrap, I have to wrap left-handed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we will add in the outside piece. We're going to position it so that these two bits are touching. Slide this down. Keep condensing as you work. We're going to go 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, condensing again, and I want to go 1, 2, and we're just going to keep repeating this pattern until we reach the top right here. And again, just make sure that you keep condensing your weave down. Squish this down as far as you can get it to go without losing the place that your inner wing piece should actually be. All right, I'm going to keep going until I reach where the wing starts to get the accent up top, and then I will meet you back here. Okay, we are now the full length that we were going to wrap for the main wing bone. If you haven't already, go ahead and snip the tail off that we started with, and go ahead and just press that little end down with your pliers. If you have a hard time getting in there, go ahead and use your bent nose pliers. Those tend to be easier to get in places. If you've got some needle nose ones like this, that makes it even easier. I have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have done 12 sets plus 5, and I'm coming up from the center, and then we're going to go ahead and do 1, 2, 3 wraps, and then I'm going down through the center with that long wire, and we're going to do 1, oh, there we go, that's easier, 2, 3 wraps there. Actually, let's back it up and make that 2, then cross back over here, and we're going to do 3 again. I'm going to go 3, 2 for a little bit. 1, that's 2, that's 3, and then 2, 1, 2, and then 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to go ahead and condense. Always make sure we compress our weave. And before we get too far, go ahead and take some round nose pliers if you're going to do the same type of design that I have done, where you have the extra little loop coming up. and make that little loop. If you want to get a really tight little loop with no extra bulkiness, I don't know if you can see the difference between these two loops. Let's see if they'll focus. This one is just a little more circular, whereas this one, the end of the wire is straight. What I do there is I make my loop and then I just snip off that little straight end and come back in and cinch it down again. And so now I've got two perfect round tiny little loops. See? And when I started on this, I was holding it this way and wrapping, and I can't wrap that way, so I went ahead and flipped it. It's reversible. The only difference at the end is which side this little loop winds up on. So you can wrap this way, you can wrap that way, whichever way you like. Just when you finish it up, whichever side you put the circle on is going to be the top side. So I'm going to keep wrapping this way until I get to the end, and then I will finish my circle on that side. And you may just have to keep fidgeting with the placement of your wires. It will get distorted as you work, and that's okay. That is to be expected. Just, you know, keep pushing things back to where they should be. Then eventually, when it is all tightened up, it will be perfect the way it is. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit more of this corset weave with you because it does go over the large outer loop. You need to have more wraps on that side than you do on this side. So I just did 3 on the outside. I'm going to do 2 on the inside again. We'll go back to 3 on this outside. 2, 3, squish it down. 2, 1, 2, I'm going to go to 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, my goal as I'm doing this is that I'm trying to keep these 2 edges lined up. Whenever I do the ones on the bottom, I want it to catch up to what's on the top. So I'm currently doing 1 extra on top, and I'm getting to the point where my bottom one might overtake it, so I'll need to add an extra one. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to check it out. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, condense, still cut up, so we're still good. So I'm getting to where I'm going to want to switch to doing 2 extra on top. This is what 4 and 2 looks like. Be careful that your wires don't overlap. I'm going to do 1 more on the bottom. Do this last one is 3 also. Then the next one I'm going to go ahead and make that switch. I don't know the actual rule for this. I just kind of play it by eye, see what looks right, and adjust as I go. If you hear that bell in the background, that is my cat playing with her toy because she was laying on the floor chewing on my wire and I didn't notice, and she chewed a piece off and I got really mad at her. So now she's decided she's going to make noise during this video, so sorry. Once you've reached nearly to the end, go ahead and finish up with a series of 2-2 wraps until you get down to where the wires are about to overlap. And then you can go ahead and do 2 around 2. And we're going to do 1 more figure 8 that is 2 and 2. 2 around 1, 2 around 1. Now I'm going to finish off this section and just coil. So that's all we're doing now, is just coiling around this wire. All right, before you trim this wire off, just make sure that you've condensed it as far as you can, and then add a few more wraps around if you can. When you can condense no more and wrap no more, then go ahead and trim this wire. Take your pliers and smush that loose wire down. And now we're ready to bind the wing curls together. But before I do that, I'm going to come through and compress everything that I just did, just to make sure it's nice and secure. And any of these bits that are just a little bent, I just straighten them out. So yeah, I start wrapping on the inside and then we'll end on the outside to keep it symmetrical. So I'm just going to go ahead and start with 3 little wraps here. There we go. I've got 1, 2, 3, and then come across to your other side, and we're just going to repeat the process. The only difference in this corset / figure 8 weave is that we don't need to do them uneven. You can just do 2 and 2 all the way down until you get to the edge, and I will be back when we're there. Once you've finished weaving through this section, come out as far as you can. Since I started on this wire with 3 wraps, I'm ending on this wire with 3 wraps just so I can keep a symmetry. I'm going to trim that wire off, press this down, make sure that that is compressed. That's what we got so far. We are going to do a figure 8 weave out, and then I will come back when I am ready to end this one and show you what I do. Once I've come out as far as I can to where going back in starts to make the wires need to lean back over what I've done because of the curves, I'm going to finish on this inside loop here, and I'm going to wrap, I'm going to coil until this last bare section here is completely covered. And I'm going to keep compressing as I go to make sure that I can pack in as much wire as possible into there so that I can keep it tight and make sure that it doesn't want to have enough room to come loose. Once that's done, I'm going to trim this wire and smooth down the edge of the wire, and then it will be time to sew the wings onto the body. To attach the wings to the body, start by taking a 2.5 foot long piece of weaving wire and attach it to the inside curve, the inside middle curve of one of your wings, and slide that down so that it's flush against where you had started before. And then we are going to take that weave, and you are going to basically be sewing the pieces together. So I'm coming up with my wire through the middle of this. I'm holding that in place. I'm holding this close as well. And we're just going to let the wire find itself a nice little home nestled in among all those curves, among all the other coils. And then we're going to go around both of these inner wires together, the bare one and the coiled one. I'm going to go around those together. I'm going to come up through the middle again. I'm coming up through the same section that I came up through the first time, and I'm being careful not to tangle my weaving wire. And you just kind of want to make sure that you're being careful where you nestle the wire, because you need to make it find a home in the coils that are already there. And it should just pop right down in between the coils. And you're basically just going to continue this the entire length until you reach probably about right here, at which point you can bind this off and either choose to bring your coil all the way down and meet there, or just stop and leave it there. You can corset weave it, figure 8 weave it down to the end there. I think I'm basically just going to bring mine down to about there and then just end it. I've reached the bottom now, and the last stitch that I'm doing, straighten that out, I've done 3 stitches at the bottom. You can kind of see I've done 3 stitches down, and then I'm bringing my weaving wire up through the center. So I want to go down between these 2 beads, but I want it to be on the other side of that cross wire. So there we go. Pulling my wire down, catching it to make sure that I don't kink it. And then I'm going to lock it into place. And I'm just going to go around once just to lock this wire into place on this side. And there we go. So now I just want to make sure that I have this lined up the correct way. I want to make sure that my antenna is on top, and we're going to sew this wing in the same way. Okay, I am ending the bindings on this side. I got to the last one up top here, and then I'm coming across underneath the wing, up, and then I've sewn a couple loops already, but I'm just sewing up to meet the coils on the inside. And I want to get like 3 or 4 in there. Wedge it in if I have to. I just want to make sure that it stays. Go one more time. And that'll make 4 loops in there for me. And I'll be happy with that. And then I will give it a cut. And then from here, it's just a matter of fiddling with the pieces until they lay exactly the way you want them to. So the body on mine kept twisting like this because of the way I had the bottom. Previously, the curls were in so that it was rounded. I found that if I instead curled those out to the side, it would allow me to make sure that I could get things to lay flatter. So I can still have the butterfly propped up on its wings. Actually, no, because now that's gone. It does a little bit. But we're going to attach rings so that we can hang it. So that won't really matter. Again, everything at this point is just preference. So we're going to trim this wire off. Poke that down. And now I've got my butterfly. He still needs chain and the rings, and we need to put his dangles on. So we're going to take our 6 wrapped brelettes, and you can either use jump rings to attach them, or you can just open this up carefully. You only need to do a little bit. So there we go. And now I'm going to close that one back up nice and tight because I don't want the wire to fall off. And if you want to add extras from the wing, oops, I was so off camera. If you want to add extras to the wing accent piece here, you can. You probably would need to do a jump ring for there though. All right. Now you can see it there. And the only thing that is left to really do with this is to attach jump rings and some chain here. So I'm just going to work the chain through the wing mesh like that, and I'm going to close the jump ring. And now he's ready for his chain. I'm really pleased with how this came out. If you have any questions about this tutorial, please let me know. Leave notes down in the comments or send me a message. You can reach me on my website, which is thedragonsgem.com, or you can leave me a message here in YouTube. I try to respond pretty quickly, but if you don't hear from me, please don't hesitate to just send another message, just in case the first one got lost. Please do me a favor and like, share, and subscribe. If you would like a chance to win either this butterfly or this butterfly, which this one is hammered and antiqued. I'm trying to get it to lay because I can't make my camera go straight. This one's hammered and antiqued, and this has a slightly different pattern where you've got the body crisscrossing as opposed to having the loose floppy wings. This is more stable, so you can not have to worry about the wings flopping around. But it also doesn't have the antenna. This was the very first one that I made. So you'll have your choice to win either this one or this one. This was the butterfly that started everything. This was the first one I did. This design is not mobile. When I first made it, it was bright copper, and now it has antiqued and patinaed over time. It's been about a couple months since I've had it, and it's this lovely, just aged copper look here. The beads are all labradorite, the same as the one that we made in our tutorial that you just got done watching. This is the mobile butterfly that we just made. If you'd like a chance to win the butterfly that we just finished making, which can be displayed wings open or wings partially closed, or the original, which is only wings open, just make sure that you leave a comment below. Winner will be drawn on the 10th of May, so you have from April 10th until May 10th. Just leave a comment and I will pick a winner from these comments. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. Every little bit helps. And don't forget to check out my new website, thedragonsgem.com. If you have any tutorial requests or have any questions, please contact me. I would love to hear from you. I'm also doing jewelry repairs through my website as well, so be sure to check that out if you have anything that you need fixed that you are unable to do on your own. Thanks for watching.